Hello everyone, today I will tell you about a ABAP test seam. For simplicity, the test seam we mentioned later refers to a ABAP test seam. Let's talk about what test seam is first. In unit test, in order to reduce dependencies, we need to replace the code in the production environment. The most common is to replace classes, replace methods. We often achieve the purpose of replacing production code by extending or implementing methods of classes and interfaces. Test seam is more ruthless, it directly replaces the code in the method. Okay, show you the code. First, we define a class. There is only one method called ABC in the class. There is one input parameter and one output parameter. The types of the parameters are all integers. This is the method we need to test. Let's take a look at the implementation of the method. In the code, we define a variable called x, and modify the value of x in the test seam code block. After the test seam code block, x is assigned to the return value. Let's take a look at the test seam code block, which starts with test seam, followed by the seam name. The seam name in the example is AAA and ends with N test seam. The code in the middle of the test seam, in the production environment, will run normally. In unit test, if there is test injection with the same seam name in the test method, the intermediate code will be replaced by the code in test injection. If not, the intermediate code will still run normally. Below, I will demonstrate the use of test injection. First, create a test class. There is a test method in the test class. In the test method, a test injection code block is defined, which will replace the previous code in the test seam during the test. Let's see the effect of execution. The result after execution is 102, indicating that the code of test injection has been executed. Let's go back to test injection. The syntax structure is similar to test seam, and also has seam name. In the test injection statement, you can access all variables within the scope of the test seam statement. That is, the context outside the test seam can be accessed in test injection. The use of test seam is as simple as that. Let's talk about how to use it. In ADT, select the seam name of test injection, click F2, and a window will pop up with the corresponding test seam code. Another way is to use the ABAP element info view. First, open the ABAP element info view. Select the seam name of test injection, and the test seam code will be displayed in the view. Test injection is valid until the end of the test method that defines the injection. In different methods, different test injections can be defined. Now, I briefly talk about some features of test seams. Test seam is ignored in production use of the program. A program can contain multiple test seams. Multiple test injections can be defined for a single test seam. Test seam is available for all executable units of the main program including tests, including local classes and subroutines. Unit tests can do test injection while executing a test method or setup method. If injections are repeated in the same test seam, the last injection is the active injection. A limitation of test seam: an injection can only be created in the test class defined in the test include. Below we demonstrate 4 usage scenarios of test seam. 1. Authorization checks. 2. Reading persistent data. 3. Modifying persistent data. 4. Creating test doubles. In the authority check scenario, if we want the check to pass, set sub RC equal to 0. If the check does not pass, set sub RC equal to a non-zero value. Test cases generally cannot rely on the data in the database table. Put the select statement in the test seam. In the unit test, the select statement can no longer run. Also in unit testing, it is best not to modify the database data, so put the modify statement in the test seam. If you need to modify dependent objects in unit tests, you can also use test seam. Thank you for watching.